chance for everyone.
We love our guns because we love freedom. This is Nephi Kaliki with the Double Tap Show. I'm here live every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. Joining me as usual in the studio is the call-in ambulance guy, Mel.
Yes, Nephi. Here we go again. Let's have another great show.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm a little pissed off, Mel.
Oh, yes?
So, you know, we're bringing Kyle Rittenhouse to the Guns in the Library event on May 13th. And last night, the news, Channel 3, it tried to go in on me a little bit, right? You know, because, you know, the jokes I told at the library last time, which, again, the key phrase here, jokes. That's fine, right? I expect them to do that. But what really, and, you know, people are getting upset. The library's getting letters from people. How dare the library use our tax dollars to give them a platform? You know, this really, the absolute ignorance in that statement, right? Because if you can silence the other side, then someone else can just as easily silence you. And if you have a difference of opinion about something, well, then don't go to it, right? We've heard that a million times before. But for people to say don't use tax dollars to give free speech a platform, I can't even imagine how stupid you have to be in order to hold that idea in your mind. That don't give taxpayer dollars to create platforms for people who they don't like. Right. And the other thing that really upsets me is that people keep calling, you know, I've got a bunch of emails today from people saying, oh, you know, why would you do this? Why would you bring Kyle Rittenhouse? And they've called him a murderer. No. He was acquitted on all charges. You can't call him that. And just because you disagree with it doesn't mean that changes the facts. The fact is he isn't. That's like saying every police officer who's ever shot someone in the line of duty is a murderer, right? Oh, just because you don't like it, then all of a sudden you're going to just overturn. That is a lie. To spread that information about that young man is a lie because he was acquitted. He was acquitted. And so you can't call him a criminal. You can't call him a murderer. And these people out there don't understand how important Kyle Rittenhouse's case is to every lawful gun owner in this country. For concealed carriers, Kyle Rittenhouse represents our worst fears and our highest hopes, right? Because everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, right? The biggest fear that concealed carriers have is that they use their firearms in self-defense and then they get charged with a crime. And then the worst fear on top of that is they get sued for it civilly, which both things happen to Kyle and are happening to Kyle. And the highest hopes is that a jury of your peers will look at the case after hundreds of thousands of dollars and months of stress and strain emotionally and physically and get acquitted. So it does represent the highest hopes, but also the greatest fears. There's two ways you can lose your life in a self-defense scenario. You can lose it from the hands of the bad guy, or you can lose it by going to jail. We owe it to ourselves as a society to look at relevant cases and determine what value exists inside of that case, whether it's good or bad. I don't look at it as good or bad. I look at it as a roadmap. And there isn't a CCW instructor in the country right now, a firearms instructor in the country right now, that is not looking at, mentioning, discussing, dissecting, digesting all things Kyle Rittenhouse case, right? This is an important case because Kyle got put through the full gamut. He went from charges to trial and jury. It didn't get settled or didn't plea out, right? And, kudos to Kyle for not punking out and taking a deal, because the value in this case is tremendously important. Number one, the prosecution was forced to have to lay out all their tools for everybody to see. Now we know what they're going to do to go after us. If lawyers aren't picking that case apart for self-defense arguments, they're a fool, because they pulled out all the stops on this case. They threw everything at him. They threw video games at him. I mean, there's nothing they didn't try to hit him with. And if after all of that, and people saying, oh, well, the cops helped him and he got away with it, or whatever it is they're saying, no. They went after him full bore with pitchforks and tiki torches. They charged him with murder. They went after him. But thank God we have in this country a jury of our peers. And for somebody to say, look, to come back with a not guilty verdict, those people in that jury would have had to say, you know what, I'd have shot him too. And that's the best thing that you can hope that a juror says in their minds. You know what? If somebody was coming at me with a handgun or smashing me over the head with a skateboard, which definitely is a deadly weapon, and they say, you know what? If I'd been in that situation, I'd have shot him too. As a CCW instructor, I teach this concept constantly, 4 days a week. That imminent jeopardy, you have to have the right to be where you're at, and he did have the right to be there. Whether he crossed the state lines with a rifle or not, that doesn't matter, because he had no foreknowledge of what he was going to encounter. Right? He had a right to be on those streets, protecting buildings, just the same as other people so apparently had a right to destroy them. That's, if one side's right, they're both right. You can't just have selective, well, we have a right to go out there and smash stuff up. You understand what they're accusing him of? The people that were out there saying it's okay to smash buildings, destroy businesses, destroy state and government property, beat up anybody that disagrees with you, suddenly has a problem when the other side defends themselves against that. The double standards are just mind-blowing to me. That they justify violence, because that's what they were doing in the streets. They were being violent. And then when someone else is violent, all of a sudden, and then they call him a racist. A racist. How so? The 3 people he shot were white guys. Black Lives Matter should have sent him an award and some of that money that they've been scamming from people. It's unbelievable to me, the hypocrisy that exists. And then to suggest, as the news was suggesting, and trying to smear the event, trying to say, oh, the last one was going to get, the last one at the Venetian got canceled, right? So Kyle was here for SHOT Show. Those of you that don't know what that is, it's the largest gun show anywhere in America. And it happens here in Vegas, usually around January, February of each year. Huge event. Kyle was invited as a special guest to the Oak Room at the Venetian, and the Venetian canceled, said it doesn't represent our values. It's not about your values when you rent a building to somebody else. It's about their values for the time that they own it, because people don't have any backbone to stick up for things and say, you know what? Just like when I went to the library and I told my jokes. They're jokes. I'm not apologizing for jokes. I never will. In fact, I tell them again. And I do. 4 days a week. It's not like I didn't tell those jokes and not test it on my smokers. Every four days a week we do classes that I don't test these jokes to see if they play or not. Of course I do. I had some politicians in the event get in their CCWs. We did the mayor of North Las Vegas. We had former Miss Nevada and candidate for U.S. Senate Sherelle Mendenhall, Noam Algieri. We had former Assistant Sheriff Tom Roberts. We had Alan Bigelow's running for assembly. We had lots of politicians in my class. And people don't realize they went after me for the jokes because it was a way to go after those politicians right before the primary elections. They wouldn't have cared if it wasn't a mayor or a governor's candidate sitting in the audience. They wouldn't have cared about the jokes because they don't care about them now. They don't. And nobody's getting mad at me because I'm telling new ones, because there's no politicians attached to it. But the ability to go to the library, that was the thing. When I heard that Kyle got canceled, I was like, oh, man. I remember what Dave Chappelle said, that taking a man's livelihood is akin to killing him. And stopping Kyle, who has 2 civil lawsuits pending, from making a living, talking about his experience. That's his right. It's absolutely his right to talk about his experience. O.J. wrote a book. Right? Everybody has a right to do what they have a right to do, and nobody needs to be getting in the way of other people. Just don't do it if you don't like it. So I came up with the idea because, the library doesn't want me there teaching these classes, but it's a public library. They are prohibited from discriminating. And so the idea was, you know what? Why don't I just bring Kyle with me? And that public libraries may actually be what saves this country from cancel culture. Because they have to play by the rules. They can't discriminate against people. That's the government. Libraries are a government-run entity. So we're bringing Kyle Rittenhouse to the East Las Vegas Library on May 13th, 2023 for the Guns in the Library Mass CCW event. If you want to sign up for the event, you can go get tickets at vegasccw.com. That's vegasccw.com. We're also doing classes 4 days a week. So get your butt up. Go sign up for the class. I promise you, don't believe the hype. This is one of the best seminars you'll be in for CCW classes. We've taken CCW classes out of the dusty old back room at a gun range, and we brought it to a Tony Robbins level experience. And people learn a lot more when they retain information, whether it's from comedy or teaching concepts. VegasCCW.com is where you go to sign up for the Kyle Rittenhouse Guns in the Library event. We'll be right back after the break. Is your man a little sissy? If so, he may qualify for a free CCW. Go to our website at vegasccw.com and enter the code I'm a little bitch, and the free CCW class is yours. Present your bruises at the door and bam, you're in. vegasccw.com, making the world a safer place, one little bitch at a time. All right, we are back. This is Nephi Kaliki with the Double Tap Show. Once again, we're here every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. Joining me is Mel, the call-in ambulance guy, making the world a safer place, one little bitch at a time. VegasCCW.com. I mean, I love that, Mel.
Well, yes, but you're not referring to me as that.
No. I wasn't talking about garden gnomes.
Well, you said little. So, yeah, garden gnomes. Oh, I remember that. That's an old one, Nephi.
Yes, it is, but it's oldie but goodie. But, hey, we're going to be opening up the phone lines here on the third segment, so if any of you are man enough to call in and talk about this, I'll give you the number now. It's 702-257-5396. 702-257-5396. If you're man enough, give us a call. So, Mel, you heard my monologue in the beginning, and I know people aren't familiar with the fact that you're a mindless liberal and my friend.
Which is, well, what comes first?
My friend first.
My friend,
Of course, Mel.
So if I'm a mindless liberal, are you a mindless
Republican?
Yeah. Is that, okay.
The truth is they're all no good and they should all be.
Well, no, what's the one I say?
I don't know. I was trying to quote it.
They're all no good and they should all be in jail.
There you go.
Because remember, I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Republican. Democrat. I'm an American. Always
patriot.
Have said that.
I'm a patriot.
I'm
mad at both of them, by the way.
Well, they're all
no good. But let's get back on. So I know you had a lot to say about what I got on my soapbox in the first half.
Well, your soapbox was actually, the crazy thing is, in a lot of cases what you were saying, I agree. Because people are too sensitive now. But that's been known. You can't say anything anymore. You can't make jokes anymore. You can't joke because people take it wrong or right. Comedy is still comedy. Because one of the things I was thinking, you remember Don Rickles?
I do.
He's still around. I think he still performs. But, in his shows, he would go to jail now. Because did he not pick on every person anyway, be they black or white, Jewish or Gentile? Didn't he pick on everybody and everybody's laughing?
Absolutely.
That was funny. Can you imagine him doing that now, I guess?
I picked on everybody at the library.
Yes, you did. And when I checked into it after watching the show last night, the news show you're talking about, yes, you didn't pull no punches. And if people take it wrong, they should understand that it's not personal.
And it wasn't for them.
It's general as.
Look, if my students are the only ones that have the ability to say, you know what, Nephi, maybe dial that back a little. Only my students. Anybody that's not in the class and doesn't understand the full context of it, well, you know what? It ain't for them. You can't go complaining about a Dave Chappelle show if you weren't in the audience. They weren't talking to you.
Right.
Remember, I love when Dave Chappelle said, remember, if you got some problem with what I'm saying, remember, you clicked on my face. Right, you watched the show.
You watched.
You could click off of it.
But you got to take things in context.
Look, I'm going to explain the reasons why I told the jokes I did. I'm going to tell you three stories.
Yes.
In self-defense, there's a concept called bare fear and imminent jeopardy. That's the difference between going to jail and not. Bare fear is your feelings, right? I'll tell you a little story. I had a brand new S550 Mercedes, and the tire indicator said it was low. So I went to a gas station to fill it up, and I saw a 1984 Chevy Impala, and there were four young brothers with their pants sagging, sitting there getting air in their tire. And so, of course, I'm like, oh, man, I'm not no little sissy. So I pull my gun out and put it in my lap, and I'm looking for some change. And I can't find any because you don't keep change like that in that kind of car. And one of them is walking around the side of around the car to my driver's side door. And I have my gun, behind the door pointed at him, and he walks up and he goes, hey, you need some quarters? And he handed me 4 quarters for the machine. Right. Man. And I'm sitting there accepting his quarters with my left hand and a gun pointed at him with my right. And, man, this really messed me up. I went home. And I thought, man, I must have walked through some white bar somewhere and caught racism or something. Like, I was really starting to question myself. Like, I'm a tactical-minded person. How did I get this so wrong? How did I get that so wrong? And this was years ago, right? I'd arrested 700 fugitives at that point, and I'd made it through all of that, and I thought I was really secure in my tactical mindset. And I got this one wrong, and I really had to look at myself. And that epiphany, that moment, that changed my life because I realized that what most people, what I had relied upon in order to determine whether it was a threat or not, was stereotypes. Mm-hmm. And those stereotypes proved in that instance and in many others I could name not to be reliable for self-defense. But what people don't realize is that's the only engine they have to determine whether or not something is a threat or not. You ask the average person, what do you use as a means of determining a threat or not? And they go, oh, well, if I feel this way or I feel that way, or they look this way or they look that way. That's stereotypes. And in self-defense, I understood how important it was. Because how many people relying on stereotypes have unnecessarily shot someone that doesn't need to be shot? In contrast, I used to do loss prevention. I was in music school, Musicians Institute out in Hollywood. And I did loss prevention for Wild Oats Market, which is now Whole Foods. And they would come up to me and say, so-and-so's in the vitamin section. We think they're stealing. And I'd go in there and I'd look and I go, man, stop bothering me with this stuff. She's got Speedos, a sports bra, hair is short, wallet's like super small. Where's she putting it? And then I'm arresting this little old lady, about 75, 80 years old, trying to get her up the stairs. She's too fragile, and they're all pulling on me. Get off her. That's Betty. She's been a customer for 20 years. I said, Betty, empty your pockets. And Betty regretfully starts pulling out vitamins, about $200-300 worth of vitamins. And they're like, Betty. And I was like, see? They go, how did you know? I said, because it's July and she's wearing a wool coat. This is a trained ability. And the true way to identify a threat is through opportunity and ability. But you don't do that naturally. You have to be trained to do that. And so every time in my class, somebody would say, I'd say, how do you, behave when the cop pulls you over? And then I'd tell them, and then a black student raised their hand and said, well, how does that apply to black students? And I'm like, it's the same. And they're like, well, you don't know what it's like to be young and black in America and get pulled over. And I said, well, you don't know what it's like to be young and Afghan in America and fly on an airplane. It's different, but the end result is the same. I want to go back to my business, whatever I was doing before he pulled me over. That's the objective when you get pulled over, is to take your little ticket if he gives you one and move on. Go back to your day. Not to get shot or beat up or arrested in the process. And so it was very, very key for me as an instructor to make sure that I gave other people the opportunity to feel guilty, to feel that sting of questioning myself and what am I using in order to determine whether somebody's a threat or not. What if I shot those young men and they were just giving me quarters? Man, I could not live with myself. And as an instructor, I used that as a sounding board, if you will, as an example of what changed me and how can I help other people go through that same change. And so I wrote jokes for every specific group to point out the stereotypes that each of us has. And then I flipped it back around and I gave a brilliant speech about how racism is fear. It's fear that if I allow you to grow and develop on your own, that eventually you will exceed my level and you'll be my ruler. Because racism is fear. And as an Afghan American after 9/11, everything changed for every one of my family members. It was okay. It was fashionable to make comments about terrorists and to make fun of Muslims and to make fun of people who look like I do or who wear a kufiya like I do. I know what it's like. And I don't want somebody shooting me because I'm wearing a kufiya or because some dummy doesn't know that Allahu Akbar means God is great and that I'm not about to blow the place up. These are stereotypes, and self-defense is riddled with these mentalities. As an instructor, it's my job to change that. And I changed it the way I saw fit. I changed it in a way that I could recreate that experience for other people because it changed me. And I changed my whole life and the way I thought about things after that. And that's what I believe makes good instructors. Someone who's really willing to take real-world situations and turn them into lessons and concepts. It's the same as we have an obligation to listen to what Kyle Rittenhouse has to say, because good or bad, there's something there for us to learn from. I'm not there to celebrate anyone dying. In fact, last week on the show, I criticized the USCCA for putting people on the cover after they shoot someone, and that it needs to stop. But that doesn't mean we don't look at those cases and just decide for ourselves what good can we get out of that bad situation. And for someone to criticize me and the news to go about it when I'm the only one standing in between somebody with a stereotype and a gun shooting the wrong person. I'm literally the only one out there standing in the middle of that. Because other people are too afraid to talk about it. I am not a coward. I will say what I feel I need to say, and if it takes somebody 10 years to figure out that what I was saying was right, then so be it. But there is nothing wrong with examining the mistakes that we've made, the things that we did wrong, and using that to teach other people so they don't make the same mistakes. So if you have a problem with Kyle Rittenhouse, then you have an obligation to look deep into it, to find out what we can do better next time, how we can better educate people who carry firearms. Is don't stand behind all of this political correctness, because we're talking about self-defense. We're talking about potentially taking a gun and using it to kill another human being. Should we not take it seriously? And I'm sick of these other instructors in town that read out of a book and a curriculum that somebody else gave them, and they're just repeating what somebody else said and call themselves an original thinker. I'm about changing lives, and sometimes you need to wake people up. And if it's a joke that does it, or if it's a sad story, but you need to take a person on an emotional journey. Because people laugh in my seminars, they cry in my seminars, and sometimes they get mad. But I always bring it back around to the point that we don't want to make the same mistakes that other people have made that either cost somebody their life unnecessarily, or we wind up in jail. Because the objective of self-defense is the same as getting pulled over. When we make the encounter, our objective is to get back to our lives and deal with this situation without any harm or any foul. And there are so many gun owners out there in this country that don't get this kind of training. They don't understand the mindset of a criminal. They don't even understand their own mindset, and that the engine they're using to determine threat assessments is stereotypes. That reflects on me too, because I wear that Middle Eastern keffiyeh. But I don't wear it on an airplane because people are looking at me sideways. I know what it's like. I've had people tell me I was the wrong color to be in a certain place in Alabama, and I had a badge and a gun on when they told me that. I have the most experience to be able to talk about this kind of thing because I've been through it too. And I will not be told how I teach. And I won't be told that Kyle Rittenhouse ain't welcome. I promise you this, Kyle Rittenhouse will not get canceled for my event. I will sue the crap out of anybody that tries to deny access, because we can't discriminate. You just can't. You tell us that we're discriminating against people while you discriminate against that person. The hypocrisy is just off the chains. Don't use our taxpayer dollars to give them a platform. Excuse me, that's what it's for. The government is supposed to provide that platform for equality. Where does diversity and equality come into the equation when it comes to someone of a different opinion of you? I have to respect your opinion. You know what? My sister, she's a lesbian and a Democrat, liberal, and she unfriended me on Facebook because I supported Trump. Man, that hurt. But that's my sister. I don't have to agree with her, and she doesn't have to agree with me to love her. And that's the kind of thing that we need to come about. And if it takes some jokes to do it, or if it takes some hurt feelings, it's okay. It's okay to be hurt, because sometimes that's what it takes to wake somebody up so they see the error in their thinking and they're better about it. True change comes when a person has an emotional experience, and that's what I do for my students. That's why we're the most highly rated CCW class in Las Vegas. It's not because we perfectly read from a PowerPoint or we perfectly teach from some textbook, because I wrote the textbook from my personal experiences. And I've had my gun on so many people in the capacity of a bounty hunter, and I can imagine if my mind wasn't right, what could happen. And to where you become the criminal when you were just minding your own business, walking down the street or going to your car. So I want to remind people, we will not be canceled. And we got a backup event just in case. I plan for this stuff. So VegasCCW.com is where you go to register for the Guns in the Library Mass CCW event featuring Kyle Rittenhouse. We are going to make a day of this that people will never forget, Mel, because there's not every day that you get a real-world example, a living example of a case that's relevant to every person that's ever carried a gun for self-defense. So May 13th, mark it on your calendars. Do not forget, VegasCCW.com is where you go to get tickets, and there's only 300 spots available, so you better get off your ass and go down and get your tickets right now. I promise you, you will not regret coming to this event. VegasCCW.com. This is the Double Tap Show. We'll be right back and taking some calls after the break.
.1015 FM KDON.
You gotta know when to draw down, when to call the law down, know when to move and when, know when to shoot. You better move for cover. In the middle of a gunfight, there's no time to be a hero till the shooting's
All right,
done.
we are back. Nephi Kaliki here with the Double Tap Show. Every Saturday from 2 to 3 with Mel, the call and Amber's guy. We're going to get straight to our caller. We've got Al on the phone. Al, welcome to the Double Tap Show. Al, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
I
I'm
can
here.
hear you now. What's up, brother?
Hey, listen, I'm thinking of getting my CCW. I just had somebody steal my car, and I got it back, and they stole my wallet. And these guys are real daring, man. They went in there, and now they're getting my mail, and they're going to the post office and picking it up. They got my driver's license, and they got my updated driver's license that I went
man, I'm sorry
and
to
had
hear
mailed
that.
to my mailbox. So anyway, I think one of the solutions, they had this bill. There was a homeless bill of rights, a joke bill that they shot it down. And a lot of people use the word homeless, and I think it's a big tent. This is my question to you, and see if you want to get involved, because I think you would be appropriate. So, I'm not insensitive. I know that some of those people have mental problems. They have, they throw them out on the street. Nobody wants to help them. Some of them have health problems. Some people end up homeless because they lose their job. But a lot of these guys, they want to be homeless. They want to live that way, and they want to find people to rip off. And so I'm pushing to have a summit where all these people that know the different aspects of homelessness come together. And I'd like to invite you and maybe say that, Nephi's kind of supporting something like this, so you can address all the criminal element in this thing. And how do we target them? And we got to separate all of these and go there. What do you think of that?
I think that's a good idea, Al. I definitely want to encourage you to reach out to me through VegasCCW.com. Just send me an email, and I'd be happy to look. I understand that I'm in an area of town where we have a lot of homeless people, and sometimes it's a balance between whether you help them or kick them off your property. But it's not as simple as that, and I appreciate you calling in about that. Please send me an email, and we'll take it a little bit further. So appreciate you calling in, Al.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, brother.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking my call, Nephi.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome, brother. So Mel,
Yes.
here I went on my soapbox again,
Yes, you did.
and they're out of tissues in here.
Oh.
So, Mel, say something for crying out loud.
Use your shirt sleeve.
Use my it's camouflage.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. No, what do you want?
Well, Mel, you took my class.
Yes.
We've known each other for, 12 years now?
About 12 years, yes. Yes,
And-
12. And I actually worked for you for 8 years.
How long have I been telling jokes?
13 years. No, for as long as I've known you, of course.
Have I ever been sensitive? And I go where people don't want me to go, right? That's what makes it funny.
Mainly, yeah, the insight. That's you. But in a comedy way, in a good way, getting comments or getting people to think and respond, which is one of the things that doesn't happen today. People, I don't know if people think anymore. Do they? Do people think anymore and understand?
I don't think
what
they
the
have
world,
logic anymore.
That's part of what I'm saying. It's unbelievable about.
I've been joking with you about everything.
Everything. Well, you've been picking on me for 8. You like picking on me. It's because if we let people know, because I'm short.
No, he doesn't say short. He means short.
Well, short.
I'm short. Mel, I'm 5'6". I'm short.
See that now? Yeah. See, you're
Toss me.
5'6", you're short.
Don't tell the elf.
I'm 5'2". What am I? Then don't say it. Don't. Because it'll be good. Well, you're not allowed to curse on the air, but you're allowed to call me names, right? Is that what
if it's consensual.
No, I am what they refer to as
vertically challenged.
Vertically challenged. Except I never used to take it that way. Well, no. At one time, it was a very bad situation in my life. I used to get picked on a lot. Of course. In junior high and elementary school. Of course I did. You learn to fight back. Was it? It's the thing again.
Yeah.
Without a gun in elementary school and in junior high and stuff, I couldn't use a gun, but you have to learn how to fight back. Self-defense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you know what the truth is, Mel, if you're taking a CCW class and you can't handle a joke, you definitely can't handle carrying a gun. You definitely can't handle it.
And you actually in your class, it's not just the class of how to use a gun. It's how to be responsible. It's the word you use, responsible. That's the important thing. Anybody can carry a gun, let's say, irresponsibly and shoot someone. You teach how maybe to not shoot someone.
Absolutely. The objective in self-defense is not to use it.
That's right.
It's not to use it. But there's this cyclical thing that happens that the moment you develop enough confidence through training and preparation, then all of a sudden people don't pick you anymore.
Well, how did I learn how to protect myself? No, I used to run fast. You learn what you have to do.
Yeah,
and
it is. So,
and your class, you'll learn. I advise everybody to take your class. It's one of the most informative, fun 8 hours I think I've ever had. Almost, you think about it, but that's good. Can I take the class again?
Well, you're going to be there on May 5th, May 13th.
Yes,
So you know what? People don't understand. Experience. I was 6 years as a bounty hunter. I had over 700 arrests in 32 states, including 2 of Vegas's top 10 most wanted. I've been in private investigations for a long, long time. I have tremendous exposure to violence in my life. And what you hear in my seminars, which I won't talk about on the radio, life experience that gives me I should have an honorary PhD in behaviorism. I really get into the psychology and behaviorism of violent criminals, and I have enough experience with them to speak intelligently about the subject. And I make it personal. My students love me.
Oh, absolutely. Because they respect and love, and they learn. When they walk out of the class, when I walked out of the class, you feel you've accomplished something. I mean, how many classes have you taken? And you walk out of class, you wonder, why were you there?
Yeah.
What did you?
That's because there's a lot of instructors out there that are teaching from a textbook and not from the heart. Yes. And there's a balance. Being a good instructor is not about how well you read from a PowerPoint. Or, gun instructors, we'll talk about this. They think that they're a good instructor because they're really, really anal about all the rules, the 4 rules of, gun safety. They think that's what makes them an instructor.
Not enough.
And what 90% of self-defense is self-confidence.
Yes.
And if they're not teaching 90% self-confidence and they're just teaching response with a gun, well, they're doing people a disservice, and people are going to continue to get shot by mistake. Mm-hmm. And these are some of the things we're going to talk about with Kyle Rittenhouse at the Guns in the Library event. Again, we're going to wrap it up here, but go to VegasCCW.com and you can find information about the Guns in the Library Mass CCW event on May 13th. We will not be canceled. Trust me on that. We did this for a reason. We did it on purpose, and we are very, very strategic because we will not be silenced. So, VegasCCW.com. Go there and register. Remember, there's only 300 seats. You better be one of them. This is the Double Tap Show. We'll be back next Saturday at 2 o'clock. Tune in.